Hey everyone, welcome back to the Contagious Victories podcast. I have another special guest. Today we're talking to Liz Wengerd from Liz's Wood Designs. Liz, welcome to Contagious Victories.
Hey, I am so happy to be here. I'm excited that we are finally doing this. I've been looking forward to it.
Yes, I've been looking forward to catching up again with you. It's been a couple months since I saw you and got to actually meet you in person, but I love following along with your everyday activities online and seeing how your business has just been growing and taking off, and then also your personal brand. So, thanks for coming on today and talking about it. It's going to be an exciting conversation.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thanks for having me.
So, Liz, I know that you have a business and a personal brand, like I said. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are for anyone who is meeting you for the first time?
Yeah, I'm Liz. I'm a wife, a mom, a believer, and a business owner, content creator. I wear lots of hats, but primarily wife and mom. Those are my primary roles. I am just your typical everyday stay at home mom, but I have a small business that I run on the side as a creative outlet. And that all started because I quit my 9 to 5. I had a corporate job that I really loved, but the plan was always that I would become a stay at home mom once we started having children. And I really looked forward to that season of life. We worked really hard to make so that I could do that. And I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to stay home. But I did not anticipate how hard it was going to be to make that transition from working full time. I had been working full time for 5 or 6 years, and making that transition to being a stay at home mom was really difficult for me. I
Oh,
am an extrovert. I love being around people. So all of a sudden, being home every day with this tiny little baby that I'm just getting to know was really hard. So eventually, I started Liz's Wood Designs when my oldest was almost a year old. And I've been doing it ever since, just kind of as like a little side hustle, gives me a little creative outlet. And that has turned into so many other things. It's given me opportunity to become a content creator. I discovered I really enjoy that. So yeah, it's just kind of one thing leads into another, I guess, and more doors open and more opportunities come about, I guess.
well, it is a very creative business, and it's one that we haven't gotten an opportunity to hear about on the show Contagious Victories. So, you work with wood.
Yes.
Why did you pick wood? Was that something that you were familiar with before you had the business, or you grew up kind of learning about, or is that something you discovered and kind of made all your own? Tell me a little bit about why wood is the material.
Well, my husband is Tyson. He works at a wood shop, at a local wood shop,
Oh,
actually, and he's very familiar with it. He's worked with it his entire career. And as I was kind of on this journey to find a creative outlet after my daughter was about 3 months old, I was like, I need to find a hobby because I was like, I have no hobbies. Um, and so I kind of went on this journey. And one time, him and I were shopping, and we saw these wooden cutouts. And he's like, you love designing stuff on the computer. He's like, why don't you design things and have them cut out? Because where he works, they have lasers and everything. And so they are set up
oh,
to cut everything. And he's like, you could design things and we could cut them out. And you would just become one of our customers and then you can sell them. So we kind of threw around a few different ideas, but that's really where the whole wood thing came from. I would have never thought about this. And at first it was kind of like, wood, I don't know if I want to do that. Um, but as I researched and kind of looked to see like what the market looked like and exactly what direction of wooden signs I want to do, because there's so many different kinds of wooden signs out there. But I chose just to do the simple cutouts. It's just a simple word cut out of wood that you can hang on your wall or your party backdrop, um, all kinds of things, really.
yeah.
And I love the simplicity of it. And so that's the route I chose to start with. And it's been the most successful for me.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And yes, I love the wood designs that I've seen you've made online for, I think the last one I saw was a baby shower where you
Yes.
had the cute little wood sign be a part of the decor at the baby shower.
Yes.
But you're right. You can use them, in baby rooms or in a living room setting where you wanted maybe
Mhm.
your last name or your child's name to be on the wall. And they are so pretty and simple. And it
Yeah.
adds a lot to be something that is very clean cut and it makes a lot of sense that there's a laser involved. I didn't know
Yes.
that originally. So that makes a lot of sense. You're not carving it, but instead you're
Yes.
cutting it. And to hear that that was a venture that you and your husband decided to do together, but it was something that he had a background in, but you were new to,
Yeah.
seems really interesting and exciting. And that's a fun origin story for
Yeah.
Liz's Wood Designs. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you elaborated on that.
Yeah, I really love it. It's a story I haven't really talked about for a while, I guess, now as we're chatting about it. But it's really cool because when I have questions about, like, when I was first starting, I was learning so much. And, like, what files do I need for the laser to be compatible with, when I design
Cool.
things? Or what about different wood types and different wood thicknesses? Like, he was my go to. And I also love that I get to work with a local business. And so, they make all of the signs for me and then he gets to bring them home because it's where he works. And so it works out really well, but I love that we started it. The idea started with us like brainstorming together, and then I was able to kind of run with it, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yes, and that's a victory story of like to anyone listening, you might have something out there that you haven't even tapped into yet or haven't
Yes.
even been exposed to yet.
Yes.
And it could be a love that you could turn into a business or just
Mhm.
have a hobby with. So we're always growing, even in our adult lives. And even when we get married or become mamas or wives, there's always an opportunity for us to start a new story, to start a new
Yes.
chapter. So I love hearing how people got to where they are. And tell me, how long have you had Liz's Wood Designs?
Uh,
How long have you been doing it?
I've been doing it for 4.5 years. In
Okay,
November,
so
it'll
yeah,
be
that's
5 years. Yeah. And I
wow,
always say
congratulations.
you just have to be willing to try. I've
Yes.
tried lots of different ventures and different side hustles, I guess you could say. And you just have to be willing to try things. Like Tyson always told me, he's like, keep trying until you find something that you love, that clicks. And that's kind of what I did. I tried like two or three different things before I started Liz's Wood Designs actually. You just have to be willing to try new things because like you were saying, you just never know what's out there that you haven't tried, you don't know anything about. But don't be intimidated about it. Just go into it with an open mind and open heart and, take one step at a time.
Yes, and you're never alone, whether it's your husband or you've got the Lord there. So if it doesn't work out, you can always try again something else. And like you said, that's a perfect example of how it might not be the first two or three things that you tried, but look at you now. You've got Liz's Wood Designs and you've been going for almost 5 years. And this is pretty new, but still you've got those 4 or 5 years behind you where it's like, this is working. And I'm getting a lot of market feedback that this is working. So congratulations, kudos, or
Thank
to
you.
that. And let's talk a little bit more about just being a stay-at-home mom and being a wife who has a business. What does your kids think about you having your own thing? Like, how do they are they involved? Do they know what that looks like? Tell me about what it's like to have a business while you're a stay-at-home mom.
It's a balancing act that is never perfected, basically.
Okay.
I just don't think that I ever have 100% balance and everything. But my daughter, she's my oldest, she will be 6 this year, and she thinks it's so cool. And every once in a while, she'll be like, I'm going to have this business when I grow up, or I'm going to do this thing. And I'm just like, I love that she is so intrigued by like having her own. Obviously, there is no pressure from me for her to have her own business. Like, I don't want my kids to feel that sense of pressure, but they definitely know what's going on. And my son, he is 2, and he loves when I go down to my office to package orders. He likes to just kind of hang out there while I do that.
Oh,
I do try to often work while my kids are sleeping or having quiet time slash napping. That's kind of when I get the bulk of my work done because I really try to be present when they're awake and are around, and try not to do a lot of work while they're around. I like this just because it gives me a sense of like, I can do this as my own time and my creative outlet, But then when the kids are around and I have to be present as a mom, then I can do that. I find for myself it's hard to balance working and being a mom at the same time. Like in the same, like the kids are awake and with me, because I get overstimulated fairly quickly and then I'm
Mhm.
just not the mom that I want to be. So that's like a priority to me, to try to make sure that I am the kind of mom I want to be. Um, which is probably all moms, we all want to be the
Yeah.
best mom that we can be.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of how I do things. Most times I get up early and work, or I'll do it during nap time and quiet time. And I will say, like right now, so I started in November of 2019 is when I started Liz's Wood Designs, and my daughter was a year old. So it was much easier in some ways when she was younger, because I only had one and she slept a lot more than she does now. During she
Yeah.
took naps and stuff during the day. And so I had a lot more time to kind of get the ball rolling with the business. And now I don't work a lot. I work like 5 to 10 hours a week probably, on the business, and I really like that. It gives me an hour or two a day. Also, when COVID started in the spring of 2020, my business really skyrocketed because everybody was looking for affordable home decor because everybody was at home. And
Yeah.
I had like, I think 50 sales in my Etsy shop in March of 2020 to like over 900 by September. So I had a huge, yeah, it was wild. And
Whoa.
it was a learning curve, but it was a lot of fun. But since then, it's been a little, I feel like my numbers are a little skewed because ever since then, like everything has slowed down more, because as the world started opening up and people started going on vacations again and spending their money on other things, I think decor has become less important in some ways. Not that it's not important, but people
Yeah.
just were really focused on it during when the world was shut down because they were at home all the time. So since then, it has like slowed down a lot, which in some ways has worked out really well for me as my kids have gotten older, because it's still a fun creative thing I do on the side, but it's not so busy that I feel like I can't be present as a mom as well. I feel like that was maybe a bit of a bunny trail, but I try really hard to keep a good balance, because I want to be present with my kids, but I also think it's really important for me to have a creative outlet, because I
Oh, yeah.
feel like I'm just a better mom, I think, when I have a little something to do that's like, you know, for myself, I guess you could say, in some ways.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that the balance that you want is more like harmony, and that you're able to have that harmony that you want and keep it a little bit flexible,
Yes.
because you do have kids, you do have, priorities that are taking
Hmm.
being the mom first, and you were a person before you were a wife or mom, which is great. And now that you're at home with them, there's pockets of time where you can put it into productive things like a hobby. And so
Yeah.
this hobby has now become a business, but it's still not something that's so demanding of your time that you can't put what you really value, which is your family first. And I just love that. That is one of the things I love about being a business owner, is that we all have our own different balances, if you will,
Yeah.
like, and so
Yes.
that balance looks different for everyone, and it's usually more like harmony than balance, like I said.
Yes.
And so to have that freedom to be able to serve your clients and help them when they need it, whether it's on the decor side or on the
Mhm.
signage side, you can do that because you do have the ability to make something
Mhm.
using the materials that you have, and it's not such a high pressure situation that like
Yeah.
corporate would have. And so there's not to say that's good or bad, but a
Yeah.
lot of times we want to be with our families and stuff, and then sometimes our families will take a nap and we're like, now what am I going to do? So it seems like you've developed that harmony really well just by knowing yourself and knowing what you want, and then also having the curiosity to be able to grow and try out new things. And that, to me, our listeners might have a completely different dream, but to me that is like the ultimate dream, is
Yeah.
having the ability to do it all, to be a Jane of all trades, like. And yeah, you've really balanced or harmonized that
Yeah.
mother, wife, business owner. From what I've seen, you've done that really well. And I know that there's going to be listeners who tune in who are like, how does she do that? So do you have any like tricks or like, tips or anything like that you might be able to give to to a past version of yourself who may not even believe that this version of you exists? Like, what would you say to her?
I would say to take it one day at a time. Take it one week at
Okay.
a time. There are times when I feel like our personal life and motherhood feels like there's a lot going on and it really needs my attention more. So the business takes a little more of a back burner. And as long as my orders are being processed on time and I'm, fulfilling my obligations to my clients, then the back end things can just kind of fall off. I might not be pinning on Pinterest. I might not be sending out an email for marketing or posting on social media or adding new products to my website or creating a website. I just created a website recently. I've been selling on Etsy this whole time, and I just found that this summer it's a bit slower. Summer is usually slower, and I was like, this is going to be my summer project to work on this. So like you really just need to take it one day at a time and one step at a time, and it's okay if sometimes your hobby falls on the back burner, because we do sacrifice a lot as wives and moms for our families. And I think a lot of stay at home moms can relate with me on this one, because we are constantly serving our families. And I definitely do not have it perfected. I make my fair share of mistakes. But also, the big thing for me is I try to ask Tyson every once in a while, like, hey, how do you feel like I'm balancing work and being a wife and a
Mm.
mom, to kind of keep his perspective with me, because he is the first person that's going to be like, hey, yeah, you have maybe been falling short here, or you're doing really great here. And like gauging where he is at is really helpful for me, because we're a team and we work together for our family. And so that's really important to me. But there are just seasons that come and go. Like so I started my business when my oldest was a year old, but then I've had a baby since then.
Okay.
And I've had a miscarriage since then. So, like, going through different seasons, some things take the back burner in business, and that's okay. Then there's other seasons where I have a little bit more time and energy, and I feel like I can, push it a little more. But I think one of the biggest things for me when I started my shop, I had an Etsy coach tell me this, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. But she really encouraged her students. She said, you decide what success looks like to you. If you want a side hustle where you work 5 to 10 hours a week, that's amazing. If you want a full time income, then that's also great. But you have to decide what you're going to sacrifice. You have to decide what's important to you, and you get to decide what success looks like. Society doesn't have to tell you what success looks like. You have to decide what that looks like for your life and the lifestyle you want to live and what's important to you and your partner. Or if you're just a solopreneur, you don't have a family, like you decide what is important to you. And those are conversations Tyson and I have often. And I try to be very intentional about it at least once a year, to sit down and be like, hey, am I prioritizing what's important to us, and do it, like, just reevaluating kind of. But I don't think that you figure all that out right away. Like, it takes time. You don't know exactly what you will do in every situation until you get there for some of those situations. But I think just knowing what your goals are and what your intentions are, is important. But then also, like, don't get too hung up on your goals and intentions. Like, also allow yourself to live and be spontaneous in life, and, do fun things. But I think that's like one of the big things for me is like deciding what is important to me, what is important to Tyson, and what do we want for our family and for our children. And then basing my success off of those goals.
Right. I love that. I haven't heard of that before, but it seems like common sense to say I need to check in with my partner and just make that time to see myself from his perspective a little bit. And it's not so much about the world's version of success as it is your family's version. And for the wives, then that looks like the husbands. If you're not married, maybe looking to a friend or a parent who could shed a little bit of light on just grounding us back to who we are, and then that version of success that which is what it looks like to us, not to the world. And then
Mhm.
on top of all that, having the grace to
Yeah.
say, if I don't meet that goal, or if it doesn't look like what my version of success looks like today, then there's always tomorrow, and there's always next week or next year if it's a different season, and saying I'm going to have grace always.
Mhm.
So what a good little check-in tip that you just offered. I love that. That is really nice of you to share that little tip. And I'm going
And
to have little, check-in
yeah.
points with loved ones. That's a really good way to make sure that you're on track with your family, with your business, with your life, and then also
Mhm.
making sure that you're looking at everything with a really good a lens, a good heart, in a way of like, is my heart in the right place with that?
Mhm.
So
And I think that
yeah, what
I think they can change. Your intentions and goals can change. Like when I first started my business to now, a lot has changed. And there have been times where Tyson's like, hey, you know what? Like, I think we need to change what we're doing. Like, one of the big things I remember, I think it was in the first year. And when you're starting a business, it's a lot of grinding to get it off the
oh
ground and
yeah.
kind of get it going. And you're figuring out so many things. When I first started shipping wooden signs, I didn't know what I was doing. So many of them arrived broken and I'd have to replace them, and I had to really refine my packaging process. So you really learn as you go. And I remember, I believe it was in the first year, I'm a night owl. He is, well, we're both night owls, but I would like to stay up late and work because that's when I felt like I was most productive and energized. But then my daughter would wake up at like 6 or 7 a.m. So I was going to bed at like 1 or 2 in the morning and then getting up with her. And then I wouldn't be the mom I wanted to be because I was tired and I was grumpy. And Tyson, at one point, he's like, I don't think this is working for our family because I know that you are not the mom that you want to be. And so we need to discuss something different. And that was really hard for me. Like it was kind of humiliating because I'm like, oh, I'm failing, that's where my thought goes right away. But he encouraged me to like wake up earlier because he had to be at work at like 6 o'clock or something. So he's like, why don't you try waking up when I go to work, and like going to bed when I go to bed, waking up when I wake up, and getting a little bit of work done before our daughter wakes up, and see how you like that. And then work while she naps. And I started doing that, and it really changed everything for me. Now I actually prefer getting up in the mornings and working in the mornings. I'm not a morning person still, but I like my mornings now. When the house is quiet, the kids are still sleeping, but that's just an example. Like it takes humility, I think, and I don't do this perfectly, so please don't hear me say that, but it's just checking in with one another. And I think being honest with your partner, if you are married or in a relationship, just being honest about what is important, and encouraging each other in ways that you see that you can do better. And for me, that was one of the things. And I think it made all the difference. And that was like one of the first big hurdles I had to get over was, it's okay to do things differently than maybe what you originally preferred. Like your goals and your intentions can change as time goes on, and you can always redo things. You don't have to start here and then just do it like that forever. You are allowed, you have permission to change your routines and your systems if it serves you and it serves your family better.
And what I'm hearing you saying is you might actually enjoy it. You might not like it, like you said, not being a morning person, but you actually find joy in growing. And I
Yeah.
think that for so many people who have thought about starting a business, the idea of not knowing how to do something like packaging or
Mhm.
finding the pockets of time to work and stuff, it can seem daunting because it's just a big unknown. But there are things that you can enjoy from the change of it, and that growth and evolution, it's not scary when you enjoy it and you're willing to have that grace of finding a good fit. And it's not perfect. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody wants to be perfect or like
Yeah.
thinks that they are perfect, but it's in those moments of like, okay, I know I'm not perfect. I've got a family, or I've got children, or I've got a husband who works in these hours. So, like, instead of saying that's my reason to not go at all, it's saying those are going to be the reasons that I'm going, and that I can change and make it fit and find those grooves, or like, find those routes that you can take that might not have been the one that you would have stepped on first. But because you were willing to get up and try and change and evolve and have that grace, that you are able to successfully go down the road, or like, make it work and stuff. And it can be fun
Yeah.
to actually, find that joy and stuff. And I say the road analogy because I follow your personal Instagram and follow your personal adventures as well as your business win. And you've been doing a lot more content creating and showing
Yeah.
off your real life, and in the moments where you're finding those grooves. And sometimes it looks like you getting on there and saying, hey, I didn't know how to do this, but I figured it out, and I'm sharing with you, this is the way that I figured it out. So I'm trying to save you time and money and energy and stuff by giving you this answer that I've found already. So I love that, and I love the content creation part of the Liz Wengerd brand. So tell me a little bit about how you've been getting into that, and the joy that you've been finding in showing up more as a person online and not just your business.
Yeah, I love that question. I actually started creating content for the business because I was like, oh, if I'm going to have this business, I need to promote my products, on social media or wherever you promote products. And I was really excited about that. But the more that I started learning the content creation process, and I actually discovered that I really enjoy just sharing more everyday moments in my life and in motherhood rather than just promoting my product. And I know that when I follow a brand, I love seeing the personal touches. I love knowing the creators. I love knowing the story behind it and what they do. But I just really fell in love with creating content, and I'm a big relational person. I love connecting with people and meeting new friends and pushing myself outside of my box a little bit. And I don't know. I just started creating content, and now here I am, it feels like. But when I started my personal Instagram account, it just felt like kind of like a fresh start for me because my business account had kind of been through the ringer with just me figuring out what direction I'm going with the business and also just life things. And it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed connecting with all of my followers and my community. That's a big thing. I think we're all just looking for community and connection. And my goal is just to bring hope and encouragement and inspiration to people.
Well, you do a great job of that. I love looking
Thank
at
you.
your, daily ventures and your conversations, like your telling of family things that maybe you're working on, or like, earlier we were chatting about the cup that you put in your dishwasher. And it was so funny because I had just had that conversation with my husband. And it's amazing how these little moments happen to us all, even if we're not putting it online. They do happen. And
Yeah.
so I love your bravery and the courage that you have
Thank you.
found in sharing those moments, and how, as an audience member, I'm like, I had that happen too. So, like, the relatability that you're bringing in to the online space, that is encouraging, and that is different from the encouragement that you give through your business. So I wanted to just bring it up and talk about it. And I love talking about your personal brand and stuff. And for anyone who's listening to this conversation between you and I, who is a fan of Liz, is there something that you want to share that maybe they don't know? Like, what's something that a friend or a follower might not know about you that you would love for them to know, but you may have not gotten the chance to tell them yet or share with them yet? Is there anything like that?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I don't know if I can think of one off the top of my head because I tend to be such an open book. I'm a external processor, I'm a verbal processor, and so it is really hard for me to hide anything because I tend to just kind of wear my heart on my sleeves. It is hard being a content creator, sometimes is difficult because you do want to share so much with your audience and really be relatable. And this is something I struggle with sometimes because I want to be relatable, but then there's also an element of, well, some things are also meant to be private, and I don't share my kids on social media hardly ever. I try to keep their faces off of social media. Just a personal decision I kind of made as my social media grew. At first, I was a little bit more picky about it when my daughter was first born. And then as she got a little older, I was like, I think it's okay. Like, I'm not too concerned. But over the last few years, I just more and more felt that nudge. That's a little bit
Mm.
of a bunny trail, but it is I'm such an open book and I'm such a verbal processor that it's really hard for me to hide anything. Um so long story short, I guess, I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I'm just like dying for people to know that they probably don't already know.
Well, I was gonna say, I think I was gonna ask, what's your favorite color? Like, just a random question like that, but I think I know. Is it yellow? Like,
Yes, it is.
yeah, okay, so that can't be the question. Favorite food, maybe?
Sushi. I love sushi.
Sushi.
That is one of my favorites. I was introduced to it like a year and a half or 2 years ago. And I mean, I had had it before, but I didn't have a good experience with it. And so I just never tried it. And then some of my girlfriends introduced me to some new sushi. And now I'm obsessed.
Okay, well, I love sushi too very much. I'm very much obsessed with it, like to the point where I'm like, I have to reserve it for like
Yes.
birthdays and anniversaries because otherwise I just be getting the sushi lunch deals like every day.
Yeah, I
But
can taste it
so
at least once a week.
it's so good. So what is your sushi roll? Like what's your order when you go? Do you have a favorite sushi roll?
Yes, I love the American Dream Roll, which I
Okay.
don't know. There's a local restaurant that has it that I really love, and I'm not sure I've had it anywhere else that is quite the same. But that's a favorite. I'm a big like cream cheese person actually,
Okay.
and I love like deep fried sushi. It's so good.
We would really have a great sushi experience because those are my favorite sushi
Yeah.
characteristics too. But I haven't heard of the American Dream Roll, so I'm gonna go to my local place and see if they've heard of it. And that's a good little thing that your followers may have not known about you. So I feel like that answers the question well and is helpful to someone who hasn't tried the American Dream Roll. So I'm gonna have to go and try that. It does make me wonder though, because they have at my local sushi restaurant a Bama roll that I don't, now that you're saying that, like, I'm like, I bet they don't have that everywhere. And so I wonder if the American Dream is similar, where it could even be the same as the Bama roll, but like the name changes.
Just
Maybe, I
different
don't know.
name. Yeah,
It
that's
just
very
makes me wonder. But
possible.
yeah, yeah, it is. So I didn't mean to go on a tangent of that, but I did love the idea of like finding out something new about you that I might not have known as like an audience member. Well, what's something that you would recommend to someone listening?
I think one of the first things that comes to my mind, and this is probably because it's something I've been struggling with lately, not being as consistent with my everyday devotional time. I
Mm.
know as a mom and as a business owner and a content creator, when I get a little bit of that quiet time in the morning, I like to try to prioritize just getting in the word, having a little bit of time to just sip my coffee if I make it, and just read some scripture. I lately it's been really difficult for me to like one prioritize it, but then also two, I think we just go through seasons where reading scripture is a little bit harder.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, listen to worship music, have a friend that you can talk to or pray with, or they can pray for you. But that's something that I just find it helps me to just like have my perspective in a good place before I start my day. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's like one piece of encouragement I have if you are a believer, to continue to prioritize just that little bit of quiet time with the Lord at some point in your day.
Amen. Yes, amen. And I love that you mentioned doing it first thing in the morning. Anytime really is good. I mean, like, to someone who hasn't done it in a while, find the time at any point in the day, even if it
Yes.
means like, the last thing you do before you go to bed. But I do agree that having it first thing in the morning really does set that intention. And if you maybe read something that was encouraging and then maybe later on in the day have something come up that you didn't expect, it's nice to have that in the back of your head of like, wait, earlier today I just read this. But it's funny how like when those things do happen and you have read your scripture that morning, it usually points to like that. And so I think it's funny in the way of like, it's usually needed. You need to have that in the back of your head for those hard days. And the example that comes to mind, I don't know if you saw it or not, but the other day, about a week ago, I got up early. I have these little cards that have Bible
Mhm,
verses on. And sometimes I use that as like a place to start whenever I
mhm.
sit down with my Bible. I'm like, oh, well, this is a good Bible verse to freshen up on today. So it was, do not be afraid. And then later on that day, my husband opened the door and there was a snake on the reef that fell inside the house. I've never had that happen before, but I
Did
was
you burn
very
your
much
house
put.
down?
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to do, and then literally, I thought it was so funny that I had that card
Mhm.
happen, and it came on. I think actually that was later in the day that I saw that, and so that made me really recalibrate with like, okay, this was a scary situation. I don't need to burn the house down, even though
Yeah.
like my human first response was to do that. But
Yes.
and so yeah, it's funny in that way of like how a lot of times when we do take in the word, it really does directly apply to that day's set of circumstances, whether we've had them happen or if they are still to come later on in the afternoon or whatever.
Mhm.
So I love that. I love that you brought up having that devotion and creating that space for yourself and how it's helped you. So, what a good recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you. I truly, and I didn't think I would ever be a morning person, but and I used to never understand when people were like, read your scripture first thing in the morning, because I truly genuinely believe you can read your scripture any time of the day and it's still meaningful and it's still
Yeah.
important to the Lord and all of those things. But I think I don't know if it's just since like becoming a mom or if it's like I'm getting older and it feels I'm a huge routine person. And I think that's just one of the big things for me is like if I don't do it first thing in the morning, it's kind of like exercising. If I don't get my walk in first thing in the morning, I'm much easier to skip it. And that's just one of those things as well that I've just learned that I tend to overlook it if I don't do it. And that's just me. It's different for everybody. There's no right or wrong. Um, but yeah.
Right. I mean, very true. There isn't a right or wrong, and that goes with everything.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said the part about working out. I've been very inspired by you sharing your workouts in the morning and that being in the morning too. And Dylan and I just had a conversation earlier today about finding a good time for both of us because we
Oh
really like
yeah.
motivating each other. And so having the online community where you get on, you're like, oh, well, she's doing it. So like not to compare, but just having that encouragement of the community, it
Yes.
makes it easier because especially when we are being honest about it and saying like, this might not have been what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this, but
Yes.
I said I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it. So having those people, those, whether you want to call them influencers or content creators or just community online who are also in that same season of life, it's been really fulfilling for me because it makes me do things that I may have put on the back burner, but I'm like, I know this is good for me. And so, yeah, just having that community is good. And I want to go ahead and tell the listeners where they can find you if this conversation is lighting them up. And if maybe they're listening and thinking, I don't have that community or I don't have that person who helps me to stay accountable, where can they find you online? Because I want them to feel confident about showing up and becoming a part of that community. So tell us where we can find you online and why it's important for them to follow you.
Well, I just love meeting new people. So if you want to come hang out with me, then please come say hi. You can find me every day, pretty much every day on Instagram. That's the primary place I like to hang out, just at Liz Wengerd. Or you can check out my website, lizwengerd.com, and you can find like all the links and everything you need there. But I try to just kind of hang out on Instagram stories. That is one of my favorite places to be. But I do kind of come and go sometimes in different seasons of life. I give myself grace, as we were saying, to also step back and be present. That's something I've been thinking about a lot today, or recently, I guess, is how to be present today and not just looking to the past, but not just looking to the future. But I love hanging out and connecting with everybody on Instagram. And my hope is just that you'll feel encouraged and inspired and just feel a little more hopeful.
Yes. And Liz, I think that you're doing a fantastic job and you
Thank
are having a lot of grace with yourself and with others too, who are still figuring out this content creation online thing. It's pretty new to all of us. And I think
you.
when we have like a website like you've recently launched, and when we have really good stories that maybe we can put in our highlight reels, then those things exist beyond us, and that's kind of miraculous in itself to have those encouraging Instagram stories, or things that exist online on the days that when we don't feel like it, or maybe we've had a hard couple of days, or maybe we are, you and I are women, so maybe like emotionally our hormones are just not, we're not doing good today, so we don't want to be
Imposter
online or
syndrome
seen.
kicks in for everybody at some point.
Yeah,
I
but I was
just
going to say,
Go ahead.
I was just going to add that, having those things available to people who might want to hang out with us, but on the days that we're not physically able to be there, then it kind of goes beyond us, and exists online where people can still find the encouragement, or they can read the blog post, or read the caption, or watch the Instagram story, so that, on those days when we're human. So like it happens, we might be sick physically, or like, have the sniffles and don't want to show the sniffles on Instagram or whatever.
Yes.
So I just want to also share that with you, because I've been feeling that too a lot lately. And I think it's nice for us to talk about and have that grace with ourselves, with each other, and then also have kind of like an antidote of like, well, the website never gets sick, or the website doesn't have a bad day, or like, so that's a good representation of who you are, that goes beyond the flesh of the human part of us. And not to get like weird about it, but like it's gonna exist even outside of our own selves and stuff. And so when you take that kind of perspective of it and say, I'm putting this out there with the intentionality that it's going to help someone even outside of the time itself, then I think that we're all being used in the way that God wants us to be used. And so and he's using us. And so just, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
I feel that.
Something
And
I'm
I feel that
fairly
too.
passionate about, and I think I have become more passionate about this since I created my personal Instagram account outside of just Liz's Wood Designs Instagram, is that as content creators, it can often feel like, oh, we need to show up all the time and be like on social media all the time. And I think it's really good for us to also like give ourselves grace and like let's not try to always be beating the algorithm. Like that's one of my goals is just to show up and create content that feels really authentic to who I am and the goals that I have and what I want to share with my community. I would much rather have a smaller community and feel like the content is authentic. And I feel like authentic and community are words that get thrown around so much on social media these days, but I'm really passionate about creating a space for my community that they can feel inspired and encouraged by and feels authentic to who I am versus trying to have like a huge following and, all of these things. I think all of those things can be okay and I think that they can come and it can be fine. But for me, that's just a goal that I have because I want people to who come into my little corner of the internet to feel safe and feel like they have a place to belong, a place that they belong. And that's something that is really important to me.
Well, I feel that and I applaud that. And I'm very thankful for that intentionality, that perspective, and for that freedom that you bring to the online space of just being yourself. Because when you're yourself, it gives other people the permission to be
Yes.
themselves. I think of like a garden
Yeah.
and being the flower that they bloom into, and just being the best flower that they are. And you do that very well with your Instagram and just with your own intentionality and with your business. But when we connected, it was through that Instagram part. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you for coming on and talking about it, because that is a victory too. And
It
I
is.
just, think that's
And
really cool. So
and all of these things to say, like, I do not want anybody to hear me and be like, oh, she's got it all figured out because I certainly do not. I still get imposter syndrome. Just like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm going to throw my phone away. I am so, I just feel like I can't do this or like I don't fit in the content creator space. Like, who am I to think that I can be a content creator? And I think we all go through that. For me, usually it happens when I'm comparing myself too much to other people or I'm looking at other people's content and comparing my content to theirs. I lose sight of like who I am and what I bring. We all have unique stories and we all have unique perspectives, and that is all shaped by our life. And I think that it is so important to remember that. Like, we are unique, God made us unique, and we all have a perspective to bring to the table. And we're not everybody's cup of tea, and that is okay. We don't have to be best friends with everybody. But I think the more that we are open and vulnerable with people, and we are our truest self when we communicate with people and connect with people, we will find our people. um, they say that in the business world when you're talking about marketing, like, you market to your ideal customer. And I think I need to look at life a little more that way. I've been challenging myself
Hmm.
to look at life more that way. You will find your people and connect with your people. And sometimes it's hard when we're going through seasons where we're struggling. Maybe there's something we're struggling with internally and we're trying to figure out. It can feel very isolating and lonely, but we're not alone because we do have God as believers, and that's really encouraging. But those seasons are hard. Oh, I don't know. That's just a bunny trail to say. I don't want anybody to feel like, hey, she's got this all figured out, because I don't. I'm just taking one day at a time. That's what I always tell everybody. One
Well,
day
I
at a
think
time, one
too,
step at a time.
yes, we all have it figured out by thinking that we don't have it figured out. Like, I think that's kind of the
No,
caveat of like, when you think of like, I don't have it all figured out, it's like, yes, but that's exactly what you're supposed to realize. And so,
you don't have to have it all
um,
figured out.
right, exactly. And
Yes.
the fun, kind of like at the beginning of this conversation, the fun is by growing and having the curiosity to learn new things. And the exciting part is that sometimes those new things actually turn out to be your favorite new things to do. And you can, people will pay
Yeah.
you to do those new things, or like,
Yeah.
and it's a fun time to have a conversation about how we all don't have it figured out.
Yeah. When you asked me earlier if there was something that I want people to know, this is actually a good one. I feel like 5 years ago, if you would have told me that I was going to be quote unquote a content creator, I would have been like, you're crazy. Because I had no desire to post everyday life things and moments from my mom life and being a business owner on social media. Like, that was not something that really intrigued me that much. But as I started my business and started creating content, that's where my love of creating content came from. And I really just, I don't know, I just fell in love with it. I kind of found a little community, and I discovered that I really enjoy it. So, just never say never. That is my life motto. You just never say never, because you don't know what doors God will open.
Yes, that's very true. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. It's been very authentic
It's so
and
fun.
honest and also very informative. And there's been a lot of tips, like you said, checking in with your husband or your family and seeing if they have any feedback on how this season's going for your life. And also, trying new things and letting them develop and become what you might not even imagine that they become. And then also just the idea of like, realizing, hey, I don't have it figured out, but that doesn't mean I can't try to figure it out, and that exciting journey that life could take me on when figuring it out. So I've just really enjoyed this conversation. I know that both of us have a lot of different things that we're doing and stuff. And so anytime I get to chat with you, Liz, it's always something that I feel like excited about afterwards, because it just
Thank
lets me
you.
know I'm not alone, and that there are other people out there who are facing some of the same things, even if it's a cup in the dishwasher.
Yes.
It's just funny to like have those check-ins with people who are, distant but also friends. It's like this fun community that we have here online that really is helpful. So thanks for
I
coming on and
agree.
being vulnerable and sharing your victories. And is there
Thank you
anything you
for
want to leave
having
us
me.
with? Yeah, thanks for coming on.
I honestly just live one day at a time, live in the present, and just focus on being where God wants you to be, and, just take everything one step at a time. You don't have to have it all figured out right now.
All right. Well, that's great advice. Go and follow Liz if you're listening. Her Instagram handle is at Liz Wengerd. You can find her on her new website, which is lizwengerd.com. And then she also has her wood design business account, which is Liz's Wood Designs. So you can check out all of her work and her life and just the beautiful things that she's sharing on a daily basis online. So go and check her out. And Liz, thank you for coming on again. I'm going to be keeping up with your victory story. So,
Yes, thank you so much for giving me the space to share. It's always so much fun chatting with you.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk to you again later. Bye, guys.
Bye.